lot of haze in the sky today. I believe there's a fire further east. And with that in mind, what was going on today? Kind of some interesting stuff. How about this first one? Apparently there was another world record. This one's with a drone light show. This one says, High Grade breaks 4 Guinness World Records with 5,200 drones. Shenzhen High Grade Innovation Technology Development Co., a world-leading supplier of indoor and outdoor drone formation systems, breaks 4 new Guinness World Records. The largest number of 5,164 drones flying simultaneously. The largest light image composed by 5,184 drones. Consecutive formations by a single fleet. The longest animation show performed by drones, 26 minutes and 26 seconds, and the largest number of 88 varied consecutive formations by a single fleet. High Grade successfully finished the Super Challenge in a continuous 2 nights, and until now, these records remain unbroken. That's kind of crazy, breaking 4 world records with this one show, and you can see all the video clips and stuff they show. It looks kind of cool overall. One of them, it actually looks like they're trying to mimic things like fireworks and all that too, from the looks of it anyways. Not too long ago, you would think of companies like Intel for things like drone light shows, but as you guys remember, they sold off the division, so who knows if that will be taken seriously. But either way, it's kind of cool. I still get to see a huge, spectacular one per se here. It's been really small with the ones they had during the fair, so who knows when we'll start seeing stuff like that. Although, will people actually like that better than fireworks overall or no? And then I read these 2 stories which kind of interrelate, and it makes you think too. In some ways it's kind of troubling. I guess this first one talks about how there was a person suing Google for recommending certain content that I guess they deem promote things like maybe violence and all that. This one says, Supreme Court agrees to hear challenges to tech company immunity. Families of terrorism victims allege platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube bear responsibility for ISIS content on their sites. The Supreme Court will consider when websites are liable for content published by their users, taking up a set of cases in which families of terrorism victims allege social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube bear some responsibility for the attacks by Islamic State. The court agreed to take up Gonzalez versus Google, an appeal by the family of Noemi Gonzalez, a young woman killed in an ISIS attack in Paris in 2015. Ms. Gonzalez's family alleges YouTube, a subsidiary of Google, owner Alphabet Inc., aided ISIS by recommending the terrorist group's videos to users. The court also agreed to hear a similar appeal, Twitter Inc. versus Tamaneh, brought by family members of Naris Alasaf, who was killed in an ISIS attack at an Istanbul nightclub in 2017. Mr. Alasaf's relatives alleged Twitter, Google, and Facebook parent company Meta Platforms Inc. all provided material support to ISIS. So how would they, I guess, argue this? Apparently it has to do with the recommendation system. It says, in the Gonzalez case, the plaintiffs allege Google knowingly allowed its algorithms to recommend and target ISIS recruitment videos to users, allowing the group to spread its message. Whether Section 230 applies to these algorithm-generated recommendations is of enormous practical importance, the family argued in their petition to the High Court. Interactive Computer Services constantly directs such recommendations in one form or another at virtually every adult and child in the United States who uses social media. So should the platform be immune because of this protection, or is them knowingly, I guess, swaying things one way or another per se, knowingly doing it, they should be held liable in that sense? It's kind of like what I said before when it comes to these types of topics. Ultimately, if you are a platform that's completely neutral, then I could see, for example, where someone posts something dumb, that you shouldn't be able to hold them liable per se, unless they are explicitly, like the person is doing something illegal per se, then yeah. And if they're made aware of it, they should take it down and all that. But as soon as you get into that little category of what's true, what's not in terms of speech in general, that's the sticky part, I would say. So who knows what would come about with this, but I just know nowadays there's a lot of arguments where the platforms aren't being neutral. So should they be completely, I guess you could say, shielded from this type of stuff? And that brings up this story, which was related, and in some ways I couldn't believe this was actually coming out of the person's mouth. It has to do with this organization here, that World Economic Forum. I remember it was here in Canada, remember when there was all that protest? the guy was bragging or something like that before, how he penetrated the cabinets and all that. Well, here, apparently there was some kind of topic that had said, tackling disinformation. How can we combat the lies that go viral? So you can see here, apparently, what they say is they partnered with various companies, social media platforms, for example. Now this specifically dealt with things like climate change and all that. Like it says here in their point forms, disinformation is creating a polluted information environment that individuals and news organizations are still learning to navigate. Social media platforms have a central but complex role in addressing the problem. Restoring trust in traditional media outlets and institutions is also key. So that then led to this video I saw of this interview which was on this topic by these same groups of people. And it makes me wonder, how do people not find this kind of disturbing when you think about it critically? Essentially, the person seemed like they were expressing how before when you typed in certain topics, I guess when it deals with things like climate change, various results were coming up that they deemed as, for example, not true and all that. Now with that, apparently they worked with companies like Google to, in a sense, suppress certain information they deemed as inappropriate while, I guess, boosting up the ones that they agree with. And is this quote I heard made me wonder, how does this not make people worried? For example, I guess the person here mentions how we own the science and we think that the world should know it. How does any one group of people, quote, own the science? Does that make sense to anybody? And you can see it here. Basically, it came right out of the person's mouth, which is a little, I guess, disturbing when you think about it.
You know, we partnered with Google, for example. If you Google climate change, you will, at the top of your search, you will get all kinds of UN resources. We started this partnership when we were shocked to see that when we Googled climate change, we were getting incredibly distorted information right at the top. So we're becoming much more proactive. You know, we own the science and we think that the world, you know, should know it, and the platforms themselves also do. But again, it's a huge challenge that I think all sectors of society need to be very active in.
I mean, I'm not a scientist, for example, but isn't the whole point of, quote, science is for people to challenge each other in terms of theories and solutions and all that? If you say this is the, quote, best way to do things or the only way to do it, then someone else should say, no, I have a different theory. Here's my, I guess, hypothesis. I'm gonna demonstrate it and so forth. For anyone to say, nope, I'm science, like you're some kind of god, for example, like no one can challenge you on that, that is really disturbing. And in this case, where if you're actually working, well, let's just say a social media company like Google, for example, to suppress information that doesn't fit your personal, I guess, beliefs or current conclusions, how is that appropriate? So that makes you wonder and a little concerned, like with the previous story, where should a company be able to do that, for example? Determine, oh, we determined this is the truth during this time, so any other result we're going to suppress. I mean, in terms of things like the environment, is this true? I mean, people told me so. Apparently, way back, people were using things like paper bags and all that, but then for some reason, I guess the plastic industry started to tell people like, oh no, it's way better to use plastic. And so people basically got away from using paper stuff. Is that true? Now, can you imagine if that is the case, where you started suppressing information like, quote, science, them saying this paper stuff is bad, the plastic is fantastic. Or the best example still, in my opinion, is how, like in the past, doctors promoted cigarette smoking. Can you imagine that? Where if this organization had like those same doctors and all that, or those companies saying, nope, the science, for example, says cigarettes are great for you, so suppress all that other information because we, quote, own the science and people should know about it. How do people not see that as really disturbing? I don't know, but that's kind of crazy. It's like what I wondered before too. What if you are wrong in the future? Let's just say with this cigarette example, you got millions of people to smoke cigarettes and all that. In the future, they got lung cancer, they died. How are you going to be held liable? right, see you guys later.